Thanks everyone for being here. The purpose of Dharma is to help people find meaning in their life and to reduce suffering. So when we're talking about any topic, that's the intention. And one of the especially important parts is that we have a big view. So a few days ago we had a national election, as you all know. We cast our votes for the candidate we hope would have the best effect on our lives, as everybody else did. And some people were elated with the outcome, and some people were devastated. Some people's fears were enormously relieved. Most of the country's fears were greatly relieved, and some people's fears were really stoked. Some people are ready to flee the U.S. And some people invested a lot more money in the stock market and it started booming, made it surge. And some people looking at all the candidates' past actions say the world is going to become a much more hostile, less friendly, more punitive, defensive place. And other people feel that now there's hope for stability and economic progress. If the election had gone the other way, different kind of outcome, then some people would be ready to have a civil war. And others would have been ready to have a new era of inclusivity and peace. So as practitioners, as people who are interested in the nature of truth, as people who aspire to peace, wisdom, loving kindness, the relief of suffering and liberation, how do we meet these circumstances? How do we meet a circumstance like this election? And I'm going to propose that first off, we take the big view. We see it, there are two sides, there are many sides to everything, like I just implied. But let's look at it from 4 different perspectives. So there's the personal. How do we awaken to the inclusive nature of loving kindness and equanimity in our hearts? How do we reduce our personal suffering? 2, to come to an intelligent understanding of what's going on, of a situation that causes as much as the mind can do. 3, to respond in a manner that's in accord with our life, with our values, with what's important to us. And then 4, to help others find personal meaning, equanimity, wisdom. And to help encourage others to find a relief of suffering and be engaged in meaningful activity. So let's consider these 4. The personal, the rational, the responsiveness, and the benefit of others. So from a personal perspective. In case you didn't know it, fear is suffering. Anxiety is suffering. Anger is suffering. The more afraid we are, the more angry we are, the more fearful we are, the more anxious we are, the more we suffer. And the more we suffer, the more angry and fearful and afraid we are, the more we begin to react to our friends, our neighbors, our families, our jobs, our relationships. Anger, fear, anxiety, suffering does not lead to clarity, does not lead to calmness, does not lead to effective action, does not lead to skillful engagement. It leads to suspicion and fear. It leads to righteousness. It leads to, I am so right that you should die. We take it to an extreme. And of course, anybody who feels that way, as we've seen in our country, creates more anger and more fear. Political arms races do not grow out of kindness and compassion. Political arms races do not grow out of clarity. They grow out of anger and fear. So, on the first level, we practice equanimity. We practice calmness. And that's true whether we have an election or an ensuing war or an economic depression or whatever happens. The first place to always begin is not with anger and fear and suspicion and hate and doubt and criticism, but to begin with, in this moment, how do I bring myself into some calmness and some clarity? We breathe deep. We sit down. We stop the mind from just spinning endlessly, because the mind can, as you all know, can spin endlessly. Fear is always in the future. Fear is always someplace else, so we bring it as much as we can, what is real right here, right now. This room. This breath. So if we look right here, right now, what's there to be afraid of? In our direct experience, right here, right now. A bunch of, I'm assuming, nice people. Behaving yourselves very, very pleasantly right now. Sitting in harmony. So, sitting in this moment, relaxing on the out-breath, bringing our nervous system into equanimity, calming down. Relaxing on the out-breath, dropping the fear of possible futures. That's the first place to take care of ourselves. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. If we're not taking care of this essential, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not finding some kind of clarity, equanimity, and peace in ourselves, how can we possibly act in a way that's going to promote clarity? That's going to promote harmony. That's going to promote something other than the escalation of war. So it always starts with our mind, our practice, our life. Regardless of what crisis is coming up next. We suddenly decided we're going to have hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes. There's an earthquake. What do? Get out of harm's way if possible. Find clarity. Find equanimity. So you can function. So, it did not matter what is going on. Find that equanimity, tranquility, clarity, calm abiding, peace. Secondly, we need to have an intelligent understanding of what's going on. And I don't mean an intelligent understanding in the sense of the media, which projects a story, because that's all we're hearing is stories, story of this and the story of that and the story of this is disastrous, the story of that's not disastrous. I mean, the nature of media, the nature of the media that we are all embedded in, is they want to make things really exciting so you'll watch so they'll make more money. So of course, anything that will generate money, that's part of their intention. It's not news, it's captivation, it's trance. So we have to have an intelligent understanding that is not about the spin, not about the story. Because what's the point of basing our actions, what's the point of basing our life on something that is just a story that people spun? May or may not be true, may not be good. I mean, I like stories, but they're stories. So first, the first thing we can all observe and we can all know that's based on reality is we don't know the future. And if you think you know the future, please let me know and we'll go to Las Vegas and we will take care of all the financial problems of this county or larger. We don't know the future of two little dice that are being thrown. We don't know the future. We think, we project, it's all probability, the probability that we'll end this talk soon is very high. But the further out in time we get, the less and less accurate our suppositions are. So we don't know the future. We can say the world is made up of 5 elements. Classically, earth, fire, water, air, and surprise. It's an element of the future. Surprise. Who would have thought we end up right here, right now? When you were young. So, not knowing is one thing we can all observe. And again, the test is, if you think you really know, go to Las Vegas or Nevada or someplace else and make some money and come back and we'll build a new building out here. If you don't know the future, well, then I would suggest you not do that. But we think, I'm willing to say I don't know the future about 2 dice, but I think I do know the future about an infinitely complex system. So let's look at causation, the next piece. In order for us to be here right now, listening to this particular talk, in this particular language, with these lights, with these floors, with this Zoom, with this audio-visual media, it took an infinite number of causes and conditions. In fact, it took, let's just, as a random number, let's say it took 30,000 years from the time of writing to get to the place where we had Zoom. And in those 30,000 years, how many causes and conditions were essential for each step along the way? An infinite number. How many causes and conditions are fed into the way our particular country is right now? We have energy issues. We have issues of ozone layers. We have issues of immigration. We have issues of land use. We have issues of insects. We have issues of viruses. We have issues of, there are an infinite number of factors that led to right here. An infinite number of factors that led to each person's lives. So we have what we call an election. Thank goodness we have elections. But the number of factors that go into an election, the number of factors that go into one person being a product of their time and stepping forth. If you look at history, you can see that most of the well-known figures were products of their time. Their time really kind of produced them. There's some extraordinary people who shaped their times, that's true. So, if we look at something, there's a mystery there. I don't know how this happened. I don't know the factors that are involved with this. I don't know what's going on in my body right this moment. I don't know how things are being metabolized. I don't know how in the world does Zoom work? I'm just sitting here talking and there's something happening someplace else over there, and it goes through lenses and it goes through electronic impulses and it goes into satellites and it goes around. It's such a mystery. So the next place that we go is, first off, we don't know. The second place, infinite number of causes. And we can spin a story about some of those causes. And, I love stories. But they're always partial. Always partial. Third way of looking at this rationally is the first noble truth of Dharma is every life has got challenges. Right? Dukkha. Every life in this room, every life in the planet has got challenges. That's just a given. Now, if we have challenges, we have two basic approaches. we can either learn from them and grow wiser, or we can collapse and become victims. Many more options. I'm just bifurcating it for the sake of the talk. Every time we have a challenge is a possibility for us to expand our understanding. Every time we have a challenge is a possibility for us to become more creative. Every time we have a challenge, a possibility for us to find and rouse inner resources which we had not yet had to tap. Every time we have a challenge, we have the ability to turn that challenge into wisdom and even loving kindness. And without challenge, my experience for myself is when I go through those periods where there's a little challenge in my life, I like to go to sleep. Or, do whatever kind of activity is sort of easy and normal. But whenever I have challenge, suddenly I have to find different resources. I have to become someone stronger. I have to become a better person, a wiser person. So, challenge is good for us. If we have the orientation that I can learn from everything, I can become wiser from anything. If I want to become a person of loving kindness, we don't become people of loving kindness when everything is going well. We become people of loving kindness when it's hard to love. And we still want to. So the next part of reality is, we got challenges and we have the opportunity to meet them. And if we meet them skillfully, then we become clearer, wiser people. And when we are clearer and wiser people, we affect the people around us. We affect our communities. When we don't, and we collapse into poison, that too affects our people. The fourth way to rationally look at this is just how the world is made. How many governments have risen and fallen the last 30,000 years? How many civilizations have risen and fallen? One figure I saw was 38, but that may be just an arbitrary figure. Things rise and fall, things come together and come apart. That's just the way the world is made. The way the world is made is, if we are born, we are going to die. That's just the way the world is made. It's not good or bad or indifferent. It's not right or wrong. It's just the way the world is made. The way the world is made, there are easy times and hard times. Things go up and go down. Just the way the world is made. So when we say, well, just the way the world is made, we can either rail against the way the world is made, or we can say, okay, I can surf. And we begin taking lessons in surfing. How do I hit the high waves, hit the low waves, and how do I just keep going without being flooded? This is part of just the way the world is made. So, from a rational perspective, we say, okay, there's things I can learn here, there's things I can grow from here. I've got to accept that things are easy and hard, that there are hurricanes and there are sunny days. I prepare differently for hurricanes than I do for sunny days, but just the way things are. 3, I'm still talking about the 4 ways of meeting crisis, challenge. In this case, this particular challenge. So the personal, the rational, the cognitive understanding. Now 3 is, how do we respond? So we can only respond with these hands now. We can only respond with our life doing what we feel is important with our mouth, our body, our mind, right now. We may think that it is great to feed starving people in Africa, but if we want to do that, it has to start with these hands right now, with this mind, with an intention right now. The only place that we can function, right here, right now. We can think, oh, somebody else should do it. Oh, somebody else. If I think hard enough, I will affect the sports game. If I think hard enough, I will affect the football and somebody will win a goal. If I think hard enough, I can make other people do what I think they should do. If I think hard enough, I can adjust the die so that it will come up with whatever number I want. If I think hard enough, I'll make something happen out there in the world. It doesn't tend to work that way. Watch. I'm not somebody who does this, but watching football, soccer, any sports game, and we think, okay, if I'm yelling, if I'm intense, I don't know what's going to happen, but if I'm intensely hoping that this and that will happen, I will affect it. It doesn't work that way. If we want to feed people in Africa, or anywhere where they're hungry, it has to start right here. So, when we come up with a crisis, we have to think, okay, here's a crisis, here's something that is not skillful, who is leading to harm. What do I do now? What can I do? And first, of course, is clarity of mind, as I've mentioned, equanimity. Out of clarity of mind and equanimity does not lead to indolence, does not lead to indifference. Clarity of mind and equanimity, if you're engaged with the world, leads to action. So out of clarity of mind, out of the desire to be of benefit, out of knowing that we are all connected, knowing that we are not separate. That's another maybe way of seeing this. We are not separate. Everything we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch is processed right here. So out of that, what do we do? If we were distressed about a particular outcome of an event, what do we do? If it's an earthquake, we go and try to help people get out from underneath the debris. What can we do with our hands, in our mind, to create more peace in the world, to create more clarity in the world, to plant the seeds of clarity so that when there's another election, when there's another catastrophe, when there's another challenge, we have planted healthy seeds so that the possibility of a larger response is better. Perhaps we become politically active, perhaps we go out and start planting trees. If we're worried about climate change, go plant trees. You just planted hundreds of trees around here. So out of clarity of mind, out of openness of heart, we act. Now, we have to act, though, in our life. We can't act in somebody else's life. Maybe in our life we decide that it's really worthwhile for me to go and walk around the White House with a sign. Okay, that's our action. Whether people respond to it or not, that's up to them. And the fourth is, if we find some degree of peace, of stability, if we find some degree of clarity, if we find ourselves motivated to act in a way that is healthy, in a salubrious manner, if we find ourselves able to act in a way that is a benefit, and hopefully that benefit will ripple out, if we find ourselves able to act in that way, then how do we help others? How do we help others find peace? How do we help others find clarity and not just be spinning around in anger and anxiety, but find peace and clarity and then help them engage in effective action? One of the ways of doing that is by meaningful joint activity. One of the ways of doing that is by offering a Sunday program, and we can come together in peace and harmony for a while. One of the ways of doing that might be passing out petitions. One of the ways might be setting up a musical festival. One of the ways might be going to an arts festival. One of the ways, there's lots of ways of helping others. Sharing the Dharma, I feel, is one of the ways we can help others. So whenever there's a catastrophe, and of course, what do we know? There will be more catastrophes. It's not labeled as a catastrophe, but there'll be big challenges. When there are big challenges, we still have the same four principles. Find calmness, peace, and clarity. Understand it from an intelligent way so that we're not just spinning in delusion. 3, function. How do we function skillfully in a way that's in accord with our values, in a way that's in accord with our view? How do we keep trying to make other people behave in ways we think are insane? How do we make sane? How do we make ourselves behave in a way we think is sane? How do we think ourselves to function at the level we would like everybody else to function? And 3, 4, to help others. So, I think that's pretty applicable. Fundamental principle, turn everything into wisdom. Turn everything into kindness. May it be so.